Hello everyone. This video is an introductory lesson that covers a very critical question variety that appears on the GMAT. Over the course of the next few slides, I will be discussing GMAT Sentence Correction in considerable detail. To start off, I'd like to familiarize you once again with the GMAT format in general. As you can see, the GMAT comprises of 4 test sections, of which one is the verbal reasoning section. The verbal reasoning section comprises of 3 major question types, of which one is the sentence correction section that we are going to discuss today. Now, the verbal section essentially has 41 questions spread across it, and the 41 questions are distributed into these 3 types of questions. In total, you get about 75 minutes, so please ensure that you invest time judiciously. Now let me introduce you to the concept a little bit. About 1/3 of all verbal questions are sentence correction questions. That means that at a time you will see 13 to 14 questions. Now these 13 to 15 questions, are spread out over batches of 2 to 3 questions throughout the verbal section. So as you sit in front of the computer and attempt your verbal section, you will see questions coming at you in batches, and sentence correction will arrive in batches of 2 to 3 questions max. Ideally, you should spend about 1.5 minutes on each question. Sentence correction as a test tests your understanding of correct, effective written English. So in order to do well in B school and in life later on, you need to be a good communicator in both spoken as well as written English. Sentence correction is the GMAT's way of assessing the written part of your English. Skills that you will have to master to do well on this section are grammar, sentence structure, and diction. So before I get into the rest of the video, let me introduce you to the SC question format. First of all, at the top of the slide, what you see are your directives, the directions that you need to follow to do well on the test. Now, if you've been preparing for sentence correction for a while, you don't necessarily need to read all of this during the test. In fact, to save time, it is actually advised that you read this well in advance before you enter the test. What you get below that is your question. Now, the question essentially is just text that has some part of it underlined. Because it is text that does not require any more directive, considering you've already been directed, that is why the text itself serves as your question. And right beneath that, you find your answer choices. As usual, as the GMAT always does, it gives you 5 answer choices, of which you need to select one. Alright, now as you may understand, the SC section, more than anything else, needs to be done in a methodical manner. So when you approach the answer choices, there are certain protocols that need to be followed. If you don't follow these protocols, you will probably end up arriving at the wrong answer. These protocols are actually nothing but the directions that I showed you in the previous slide, simplified. So let's look at what these protocols are. First of all, the correct answer needs to be grammatically and structurally correct. Now you might want to make note of these 6 concepts right here, because these are the GMAT's favorites in assessing you on sentence structure and quality. We will of course go into each of these in detail when we start our live classes, but as of now, it's useful that you just know what they are. The correct answer will also be effective. And by effective, I mean that it will lack any kind of ambiguity or complication. Just like in mathematics, if you add and subtract too many numbers together, you end up with a value that is much lesser than what it might seem to be. The same thing happens with sentences. Now let's say we'd work with these numbers. What answer do we come to? 5 plus 2 is 7. 7 minus 4 is 3. When you first glance at this, you obviously must have thought that this is going to come to something greater than 3, right? But it only came to a very small number. That's exactly what happens with a sentence. When you're writing a sentence, if you put in too many words in it, you might think that you're visually adding more appeal to it, but essentially you're taking away from it by subtracting its essence. The GMAT actually likes it when you make short, clear and concise sentences and don't overly complicate it. Right? That was the second point. The third point is about the usage of proper diction. Now, most of you who have ever written or worked with writers before, you will understand what this word means. Diction is nothing but the use of the absolutely appropriate word. And by appropriate, I mean a word that fits perfectly in the context. A good example of this is the if versus whether conundrum that a lot of people face. Most of you don't know what the difference is. Well, to put it out there, if is used in a conditional sentence. Let's say you want to say, I don't know if I can come tomorrow. You're kind of putting a condition on whether you can come. So it is a conditional sentence. Whereas the other word, whether, is not about conditionals at all. It is about choice. So suppose you say, I didn't know whether I wanted a burger or a pizza. You're actually talking about two choices, the pizza and the burger. So that is a different use. And if is a different use. If I had to rewrite the burger and the pizza sentence, I would just say that if I got the burger, I would be quite happy. You see the difference? Right. Now, beyond all of these points that I've made to you, it is absolutely essential that you realize that the goal that you have in mind is to choose the best among the answer choices. And why I use this word with so much emphasis is that most people are well aware of grammar and might think that they'll do on this on the test for this reason. But the whole point of the test is to ensure that you choose the best among the answer choices that are given. So it's all very contextual really. And in the real world, what might be correct may not be correct on the GMAT and vice versa. Okay, now let's get into the methodology. So first of all, if you want to do well on the SC, you have to develop a method and a plan. Because first of all, it's all about rules because there's a lot of grammar. And second, you need to cover the section quickly by devoting 1.5 minutes to each question, which is quite a short time, right? So, in order to develop a general methodology, you have to first understand that it can be split into 4 steps. Step 1 is about taking a first glance at the entire problem, and this includes both the question and the answer choices. Step 2 is about reading the sentence for meaning. So this step is just about reading the question, the text with the underlined portion. Step 3 is about finding a starting point in the text. You'll understand this better when we get forward. Step 4 is about eliminating all the incorrect choices. Alright? So let's introduce you to a sample problem. By the use of this sample problem, I'll hope to demonstrate the steps going forward. So if you want, you can feel free to pause the video and read the problem. As I go forward with my general strategy, we will keep revisiting it from time to time. Alright, now look at the first step. The first thing that you do when you glance at the problem is you take a meaningful look at everything that the problem entails. The underline, the answer choices, everything. Okay? So, what are those clues that you look at? Well, first of all, look at how long the underline is. Do you think the underline is relatively short? If it had been relatively short, it would cover perhaps 3 to 5 to 6 max words, right? But if you look at this underline here on our sample problem, you will notice that it is quite long actually. So long in fact that it starts in one line and ends in the next. So it's a long underline. And what does that mean? Well, very long underlines often signal issues with sentence structure, meaning, modifiers and parallelism. So pretty much quite a few things that the GMAT is trying to test. A very short underline less than 5 words, may lead you to compare the answers in full before reading the original sentence. So in case you find a very short underline, you might not even need to read the original text and might actually find more use in comparing the answer choices first. So depending on the underline, you can actually direct your entire approach to the problem. Second point, what's happening where the underline starts? Well, there's a reason why the GMAT starts its underline where it does. If you can just glance over the problem carefully, you will notice that there is some meaning behind why it is starting where it is starting. So when you notice that, what do you think you can notice? Well, as an example, I could say, if the word has is the first underlined word, and the sentence is likely testing either subject-verb agreement or verb tense. Why? Because has is a verb. So because of this reason, just because the underline starts as has, you've had a fairly good understanding of what you're probably going to encounter. Now notice the split or difference among the answer choices. This is something that you have to essentially do as part of the sentence correction strategy. A split is nothing but the difference in the same sentence as it appears again and again. Obviously you have 5 different answer choices, so you'll find completely different versions of it. Well, 5 different versions of this underlined sentence. If you can just find where those differences lie, it kind of brings you very close to understanding what might be your focus. So here in this question, you can see that there's a split between indicate and indicates. You see quite a bit of difference between there and that and the. And then later on in the sentence, you see some split in use of and using. So once you make a mental note of this, perhaps you will find some benefit later on. Let's find out. Okay, so now that we've had a look at the sample problem, the next step is to read the sentence alone for meaning. So the sample problem with just the sentence at the top need not be read very carefully when you're taking your first glance. But in your step 2, you must actually go through every sentence, every line carefully and try to understand what it is trying to tell you, what the meaning is. So this is where you keep an eye out for both grammar and meaning issues. A sentence can be grammatically correct and yet illogical or ambiguous. This is possible. In fact, most people who try to be grammatically correct often make a mistake when it comes to meaning. The non-underlined portion contains very valuable information. Especially for an argument text that is this long, there's a lot of information to find in the non-underlined portion. In fact, most of what you will understand of the underlined portion will actually come from the non-underlined portion. If you think there's an error in the original, well, you can all immediately keep this concept in your mind that option A is out. Why? Because as you read the entire sentence meaningfully, you've already understood that something is very wrong with this sentence. So, well, yes, you can automatically eliminate option A, because as you know, option A is nothing but the repetition of the original sentence. Right. Try to articulate out loud the sentence's objectives in your own words. Now, when you do your reading of the sentence for meaning, if you are able to articulate what you are reading, then you will be able to understand why you are even reading it and what your own objective is. Like I have always mentioned again and again, once you understand the objective of the question, you can easily reach the objective that you want to reach as well. Right? So this is where you do the reading of the sentence. So now, barring all the answer choices that I have shown you, just look at the sentence. What does it say? Excavators at the Indus Valley site of Harappa in eastern Pakistan say the discovery of inscribed shards dating to circa certain period of time, let's not worry about that, indicate their development of a Harappan writing system. The use of inscribed seals impressed into, whoa, okay, I've already lost sense in what I'm reading. I don't know if the same thing happened with you, but I did. I already lost track of what I was reading because it suddenly made no sense to me. What are they trying to say? Are they talking about the excavators or the discovery of the shards? Let's read it again. The excavators discovered something. What did they discover? Oh wait, no, they didn't discover anything. They were just saying. What were they saying then? Excavators say that the discovery of inscribed shards dating to circa so and so time indicate their development. Hang on, who is there? We're not talking about the excavators. Are we talking about the shards then? Okay, indicate their development of a Harappan writing system. Still not making any sense to me. Who is there? The shards are not going to develop a system. Then clearly there must be a problem here, right? Let's read it yet again. Excavators at the Indus Valley site of Harappa say the discovery of inscribed shards indicate their development of a Harappan writing system. No, this is not working out. Alright, so we know that there's something wrong here. Let's read the rest of it. There's a comma here. The use of inscribed seals impressed into clay for marking ownership and the standardization of weights for trade or taxation occurred many decades, if not centuries, earlier than was previously believed. Oh, now I get it. They are talking about something happening earlier than was previously believed. Now notice how I only understand that by the time I reach the end of the sentence. And this is a challenge that you're going to face repeatedly as you do sentence correction. Your error will come way before you've reached the meaning, and that is why sometimes you will find confusion in what you're reading. Know that whenever this happens, most of the times it is because there is an error in the underline. And this is precisely why you can't find meaning in what you're reading. Okay, I think we've done enough for this step. But then make sure before you leave this step, you have a proper understanding of where it is going. Like I just told you that now I've understood that this sentence is talking about things that happened earlier than was previously believed. That's all you need to know for now. Let's move to the next step. Now this step is about finding a starting point. There are two primary ways of finding a starting point. What are those two ways? The first way is you read the original sentence and spot an error, or at least a suspected error. Well, that's what I did, right? I just spotted that there's something wrong here when they say there. So for a suspected issue, immediately look through the choices to find at least one split for that issue. So now is where you get into the answer choices. Let's do that then. We've already read this. We know that there's something wrong at this point, so we cross it out. So this is where we need to focus on. So let's look at our answer choices. Indicate there and out. Indicate that the, okay, maybe an answer. Indicates that there doesn't make much of a difference, does it? Let's keep it out. Indicates the, indicates that the. Okay, so we have a possible tussle between B, D and E. How do we find out what the answer is? We're getting there. Alright. So if all five are identical, you haven't found a legitimate issue. But we did find that they're not identical, so we have found a legitimate issue. If you find splits, go ahead and tackle the issue. Well, we just did that. The second method is you compare answers and notice splits or differences in them. Now, this is a method where you spot no error whatsoever. So the meaningful reading that I just did, if I found no error in my reading, the only option I'm left with then is to just start comparing the splits. Now obviously we have just addressed this split. There are other splits as well, right? I told you about the split in this and the split in indicate versus indicates. So now if you read it again, you will get a better understanding of which one of these two can be eliminated. Right, so let's do that reading. Excavators at the Indus Valley site of Harappa in eastern Pakistan say the discovery of inscribed shards dating to so and so indicate, wait, indicate is a split. So do you think it should be indicate or indicates? Well, what is the subject of the sentence? Is the subject the excavators or the discovery of the shards? It's the discovery of the shards. So the excavators say that the discovery indicates something. Indicates something? It indicates. Because discovery is singular, right? And discovery will always indicate, right? But discovery will indicate in this context discovery indicates something. So the discovery indicates that so and so and so. So we can eliminate B as well. We are left with D and we are left with E. Alright, we're getting closer. Let's move to the next step to do the last bit of the strategy, the elimination. Now, some of our elimination has already happened, right? So, how do we further accentuate and enhance the elimination strategy? Well, just read it again. The starting point that we had in the third step was all about finding a place where you can find an issue. We already found our issue with there. We found our issue with indicate. Now let's start the process again. Where else do you think an issue lies? Let's look at it again. Excavators at the Indus Valley site of Harappa say that the discovery of inscribed shards dating to circa so and so indicates the development indicates that the yes. Well, why should it be that the development? Because look at the rest of the sentence. The standardization of weights. Look at it. The use of inscribed seals. So this is a problem with parallelism. So the development of a Harappan writing system, comma, the use of inscribed seals, comma, the standardization of weights. They have all actually occurred much earlier than was previously believed. Now that makes some sense. But then how do you decide between indicates the and indicates that the? Well, do we even have to? We've already eliminated option A. If you want reference, here it is. We've already eliminated options A, B and C. So we can do that here, A, B and C. Now look for indicates the. Alright, we've got indicates the here. Now let's read the rest of it. Indicates the development of a Harappan writing system. But oh, look at that. This has already messed it up. The use of here has been changed. I already told you that it needs to be the use of and the standardization, right? Because it's a parallelism thing. If this is if the standardization is preceded by the, then the use cannot be preceded by there. So this is wrong. Thus your answer is E. See? Right. So you've found your answer, and so when we've reached the end of this video. If you guys found it useful, please watch the next video in our series, because we are constantly trying to help you out with grammar and meaning on sentence correction. And ensure that you go ahead and practice the questions on QSLE, because they will help you get better at sentence correction. Alright? Like I said, we've got another video in place. It's called SC Grammar and Meaning, and you'll find the link to it in the description. Please ensure that you watch these videos before you attend the SC live classes in QSLE, because they will help you better understand and follow the classes, and hopefully ensure that you don't miss out on a major chunk of the class. That's all for now. You will hear me again in the next video. Cheers!